Lone trucker finds an abandoned mother, crying by the road. Then he makes a life-changing choice. Jack Reynolds never expected that an ordinary delivery route would lead to the moment that changed his life forever. As the sun beat down on an empty stretch of road, he spotted something unusual in the distance. What appeared to be a woman collapsed beside a child, barely visible in the shimmering heat. Against every instinct built from a life of silence and disappointment, Jack hit the brakes. What followed was not just an act of kindness. It was the beginning of a journey that would unravel dark secrets, ignite hidden courage, and forge an unexpected family from the wreckage of fear. What would you do if you found someone abandoned by the world, someone running from something dangerous, carrying a child, and desperate for hope? This story will take you from desolate highways to moments of fierce confrontation and quiet redemption. If stories of justice and compassion speak to your heart, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and hit like. Your support helps. First, bring more powerful emotional stories to life. As Jack opened that truck door, he didn't just change her future, he reclaimed his own. Jack Reynolds had driven this stretch of Highway 77 so many times, it felt like an extension of his own thoughts. The long ribbon of cracked asphalt, the thrum of 18 wheels on faded lanes, and the buzz of dispatch radio were his only companions. Inside the cab, worn leather and the faint smell of diesel surrounded him like a second skin. He didn't speak much these days, not even to himself. There were memories too heavy for words, ones that lived in the silence between mile markers, the kind that made even country songs seem too cheerful. He wasn't running away from anyone. He was just driving. Every morning started the same way. Coffee in a plastic thermos, a check under the hood, a call from a dispatcher who barely remembered his name. He was good at what he did, on time, reliable, invisible. That's how he liked it. Jack didn't believe in luck or fate anymore, not since the accident that took his younger brother, a fellow trucker who once shared the same route. Since then, life became a task to complete, not a journey to enjoy. But today the road felt different, not for any visible reason, just a pressure in his chest, like something waiting ahead. The sun beat hard on the roof of his cab. August in, Texas was relentless. Heat waves shimmered off the pavement like ghosts. His hands tightened on the steering wheel as his thoughts drifted. He didn't have a family, no wife, no kids. Sometimes he told himself that was by choice. Other times he wasn't so sure. He remembered the last time he helped someone on the road, a hitchhiker who stole from him the next morning. That burned more than he expected. Since then, he kept his eyes forward. No stops, no strangers. Just the road. Always the road. A loud pop from the CB radio crackled him back to attention. Dust storm warning northeast of Elkhart. Visibility low. Jack flipped the volume down. He wasn't heading that way. He preferred storms over people. At least storms didn't lie. He reached for his sandwich, bit into it without tasting, and took another sip of warm coffee. His truck hummed beneath him like a tired beast still pushing forward. Then, about 2 miles ahead, something shifted on the horizon. A dark shape, no, two, small, low to the ground, moving slowly. He squinted through the windshield, heart rate steady, mind calculating. At this distance, they could have been wildlife, or just debris. Still, something about the way one of the shapes leaned toward the other made him ease off the gas. As he drew closer, details came into focus. A woman, lying on her side, barely conscious. And next to her, a little boy, no more than 4, frantically waving his arms, crying. Jack's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Part of him said, "Keep driving." Another part, buried deep and stubborn, whispered, "Stop!" His foot hovered over the brake. Trucks barreled past in the opposite direction, honking loudly. Time stretched. The boy looked directly at Jack's truck as it approached, face streaked with tears and dust. Jack could see now. The woman was pregnant, her belly rising beneath a torn shirt. The boy clung to her like a lifeline. Jack's throat went dry. The air felt heavier, the road quieter. He had a choice. Keep going, let someone else handle it, or pull over, break the pattern, and risk being wrong again. He pulled onto the shoulder. The sound of gravel under tires felt deafening. The engine idled as Jack stared at the scene, hands still gripping the wheel. He looked at the boy again, barefoot, shaking, skin red from sunburn. The mother hadn't moved. For a moment, Jack did nothing. He just watched, like a man observing someone else's tragedy on TV. Then he opened the door. Heat rushed in like a wave, but he barely felt it. His boots hit the ground, heart pounding. This wasn't part of the plan, but the road had chosen something else. Jack approached cautiously. "Hey there," he called out, voice rough from disuse. The boy turned, eyes wide with both fear and hope. Jack knelt slowly, his gaze moving between the boy and the woman. "Is she breathing?" he asked gently. The boy nodded but didn't speak. Jack touched the woman's shoulder, warm, clammy still. He noticed bruises along her arms, something twisted in his gut. This wasn't just a case of someone running out of gas. This was something darker, something broken. He reached into the cab for his first aid kit. Just as he turned back, the woman's eyes fluttered open. "Don't let him find us," she whispered, barely audible. Her lips were cracked, voice raw with fear. Jack froze. That one sentence changed everything. Not just a rescue, not just heat exhaustion. There was someone out there, hunting. Jack stood there silent while her words echoed in his ears. The wind picked up dust behind them like warning smoke rising from the road. He glanced back at the horizon. There was no car yet, but something told him one might come. Jack gently helped Lena sit up, her breath ragged as she clutched her stomach with one hand and reached for her son with the other. Ethan, still wide-eyed and trembling, clung to her side. Jack handed them a water bottle from his cab. Lena's hand shook as she took it. She drank slowly, then passed it to Ethan, who gulped it down like he hadn't seen water in hours. Jack crouched beside them, studying their condition. Bruised arms. A ripped sandal. The kid's lips cracked from dehydration. His heart beat faster, not from panic, but something older. Guilt, maybe, or duty. "What happened?" Jack asked softly. Lena didn't answer at first. She kept her eyes on the road, as if expecting someone or something to appear. Finally, she muttered, "He left us here. Said we were slowing him down." Jack blinked. "Who?" She didn't respond. Just held Ethan tighter. Jack didn't push, not yet, but his chest tightened. He'd seen enough to know when someone was escaping something worse than poverty. He offered a hand. "Let's get out of the sun." Lena nodded, slowly, and let him help her to her feet. Ethan followed without a word. Inside the truck, Jack moved some gear around so Lena and Ethan could sit comfortably. He turned the AC on full blast. Lena winced as the cool air hit her face, but she said nothing. Her silence screamed louder than any words. Jack kept his questions buried, for now. They rode in silence for several minutes, just the hum of tires, and the occasional sniffle from Ethan. Jack stole glances at them through the mirror. Something in Lena's posture, rigid, alert, told him she wasn't used to kindness. That truth dug into him like a splinter. Jack pulled into a quiet gas station, the kind with dusty windows and a vending machine that hadn't worked since '98. "Bathrooms in the back," he said. Lena nodded and slowly stepped out. Jack walked with Ethan to grab snacks, juice, crackers, whatever might stay down. As they entered, the clerk behind the counter raised an eyebrow. "Do you picked up strays now, Jack?" Jack froze, eyes narrowing. "They're human, not dogs." The clerk shrugged, clearly unfazed. Jack hated small towns for this exact reason. People loved to judge, especially when they didn't understand. Backs. At the truck, Jack handed Lena a pack of peanut butter crackers. She looked at it like it was gold. "Thank you," she whispered. It was the first thing she said to him directly. Jack nodded, pretending it didn't matter. But something inside shifted. The way she watched her son eat before taking a bite herself, it wasn't just survival. It was love under siege. He realized she wasn't just a passenger now. She was a test, a mirror, a chance to do something right, even if no one was watching. As they drove, Lena began to talk, Small fragments, like shattered glass, her name. That she had nowhere to go, that she hadn't called her parents in years, no friends to rely on. The man she was with had promised safety, but turned into a shadow of fear. Jack listened, eyes fixed on the road. He didn't interrupt. He knew the power of silence. Sometimes it was the only way someone could finish telling the truth without breaking apart. He didn't judge her. He only asked, "Do you want to go to the police?" Her silence was answer enough. The sun began to dip behind the hills, casting everything in gold and rust. Jack noticed a black SUV pulling into a lane behind them. Nothing unusual, except it had tinted windows. And it stayed back, always one car behind, never passing. Jack's instincts flared. He changed lanes twice. So did the SUV. Lena didn't notice. She was finally asleep, head resting against the window, one arm draped protectively over Ethan. Jack clenched the wheel tighter. His truck was many things, a coffin of regrets, a lifeline. But now it might become a shield. He took the next exit off the main highway, onto a service road winding between fields. The SUV didn't follow. Jack's shoulders dropped a notch. False alarm maybe, or maybe a warning. He wouldn't risk it. He needed to get them somewhere safe. An old trucker buddy owned a scrapyard not far ahead, off the radar. No questions asked. That's where he'd go. As Lena stirred and looked at him sleepily, Jack forced a smile. "Almost there," he said, but the knot in his gut told him they were only just beginning. As the scrapyard lights came into view, Lena spoke again. "Why are you helping us?" Jack didn't answer right away. How could he explain that her pain made him feel less alone? That Ethan's wide eyes reminded him of a nephew he never saw again after the funeral? That he hated how the world forgot people like her? Instead, he simply said, "Because someone once helped me, and I didn't deserve it either." Lena looked at him for a long moment, then leaned back into the seat. For the first time, she exhaled, not from exhaustion, but relief. The scrapyard stood like a fortress of rusted metal and forgotten parts, surrounded by a sagging chain-link fence and rows of stacked cars with broken windows. It wasn't much, but it was hidden. Jack pulled into the gravel lot and cut the engine. Lena stirred. Ethan was still asleep, his head resting against her belly. The yard dog barked once, then recognized Jack's scent and lay back down. Jack walked ahead and knocked on the back door of the small trailer that served as an office. Seconds later, a tall man with oil-stained overalls and a grey beard stepped out, blinking at the headlights. "Jack, what the hell are you doing here? This late?" the man asked. "Need a place for the night. Emergency." The man didn't ask questions. He never did. "You always did pick the worst times," he muttered, waving them inside. Lena hesitated at the door. Jack gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's safe," he said. She nodded and followed. Inside, the air smelled of gasoline and black coffee. There was one couch, a bunk, and a small table. Enough. Jack set Ethan down gently. The boy barely moved. Lena sat beside him, eyes scanning every corner. The man, Ronnie, handed Jack a beer and lit a cigarette. "She in trouble?" Jack didn't answer. Ronnie shrugged. "Figured." Jack stared out the window. "Someone might be following us." Ronnie nodded, as if this confirmed something he already suspected. "Truck'll be safe here, you two, for now." Jack appreciated that. Lena emerged from the bathroom minutes later, looking slightly more alive. She accepted a blanket from Ronnie's wife, who'd arrived silently with tea and a bowl of rice. There was something powerful about that silent hospitality. No pity, just kindness. Lena's eyes welled up, but she blinked it back. Later that night, Jack stood outside by the truck, looking at the moon. He'd driven through every state west of the Mississippi, but never once had he stopped for anyone this long. The silence pressed on him, thick with unspoken questions. Was he doing the right thing? Was he ready to be someone's anchor? Behind him, Lena appeared, wrapping the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "I haven't felt safe in years," she said. Jack turned but didn't speak. "I thought no one would ever stop for us." He nodded slowly. "Most don't." She looked down. "But you did." Inside, Ethan coughed. Jack glanced toward the trailer. You think he's sick? Lena nodded. He always gets fevers when he's stressed, but it'll pass. Jack didn't like the uncertainty. Tomorrow we'll get him checked. I know a place. Lena raised an eyebrow. Why are you still helping? Jack opened his mouth, then closed it. Because leaving would haunt me more than staying. She held his gaze for a moment, then returned inside. Jack stayed outside longer, the night air cool against his skin. The shadows between the cars felt alive. Something was coming. He could feel it. The next morning, Jack drove them to a small urgent care clinic 30 miles out, under a false name. Ethan had a mild fever, but the doctor prescribed fluids and rest. Still, Jack noticed the receptionist staring too long at Lena. He paid in cash. No questions. But on the way out, he noticed a man in the parking lot leaning on a black sedan, pretending to scroll his phone. Jack memorized the plate. When the man made eye contact and looked away, Jack's alarm bells went off. Time to go, he whispered. Lena saw the shift in his face and obeyed. They took the back roads for the rest of the day. Jack said little, focusing on the map, the signs, the shadows. Lena sat silently, fingers brushing Ethan's hair. Tension clung to the cab like smoke. As the sun dipped low again, they stopped at a trucker's motel. Cheap, anonymous, out of the way. Jack parked out back, away from street view. They checked in under false names. In the room, Lena watched Ethan sleep, tears finally falling as her body let go. Jack sat by the door, chair angled toward the window. Guard, protector, stranger. Later that night, Jack heard footsteps outside. Slow, deliberate. He reached for his pocket knife and stood in the darkness. The steps stopped, then retreated. He waited a full 10 minutes before looking out. No one. But a business card had been slipped under the door. Blank, except for a red thumbprint on one side. Jack froze. That wasn't random. That was a message. A threat. He folded the card and tucked it away. He didn't tell Lena. Not yet. She'd already seen too many monsters. But inside, something shifted. This wasn't just a rescue anymore. It was war. Jack didn't sleep that night. The red thumbprint. Card sat heavy in his jacket pocket like a ticking bomb. Every creak outside the motel made him tighten his grip on the knife resting beside him. He watched Lena and Ethan sleep in the bed across the room. Two souls curled into one another like driftwood, trying not to sink. In that moment, he realized something terrifying. He cared. Not out of pity, out of something deeper, raw. He wanted them safe, and whoever left that card, it wasn't finished yet. At dawn, he made a decision. They'd move again, but not just aimlessly. They needed a plan. Over breakfast in a quiet diner, Jack laid it out. We're going somewhere private, secure. No one knows it but me. Lena stirred her coffee, eyes bloodshot from too many sleepless nights. Why? She asked. You don't owe us anything. Jack stared at her. Because someone's hunting you, and I won't be the guy who walks away from that. She looked down, ashamed. Then, with a whisper, she said, You don't know who he is. Jack leaned in. Then tell me. Lena hesitated, swallowing hard. Then the dam broke. She told him everything. His name was Chase Vernon, a contractor with government ties, connections. In small towns, the kind of man who never had to answer for anything. When I got pregnant again, she said, he changed, controlling, violent, paranoid. Said the baby wasn't his. Started tracking my phone, locking doors. Jack felt his jaw clench. I tried to run once before, she continued, and he found us in less than a day. Said next time I'd disappear for real. Her voice trembled. He meant it. Jack rubbed his face, trying to calm the storm inside. You think that guy yesterday, the one by the clinic, was him? Lena shook her head. He has people. He doesn't always show up himself, but he leaves signs. Jack didn't have to ask what the red thumbprint meant anymore. It wasn't just a warning. It was a signature. Jack paid the bill and led them back to the truck. His mind raced with options, none of them safe. He knew people, old friends from uglier chapters of his life. Maybe it was time to call in a favor. The new location was an abandoned ranger's, stationed deep in the national park. a place Jack had once slept during a snowstorm. It was miles from any major road, hard to access without GPS, and looked like it had been swallowed by the forest. Perfect. Ethan perked up when he saw a deer outside. For a moment he smiled. Jack caught Lena watching her son, and smiled too. They unpacked slowly, finding old blankets, supplies, and a working stove. Lena lit a fire while Jack checked the perimeter. The woods were quiet. But so was Chase, and that worried him more. That night, with Ethan asleep and the fire casting soft light across the walls, Lena sat beside Jack on the porch steps. She pulled her knees to her chest and stared into the trees. "I used to think I was strong," she said. "I stayed with him because I thought I could change him, or endure it, for Ethan's sake." Her voice broke, but it just kept getting worse. Jack said nothing, letting her speak. "The worst part wasn't the hitting," she continued. "It was when I realized he enjoyed making Ethan afraid of me too." Jack's fists tightened. "I'm not a good mother," she whispered. Jack turned toward her, eyes hard. "You're alive. You kept your son alive. You got out. That makes you stronger than most." Lena didn't reply, but she cried. Quietly, without asking for comfort, and Jack didn't try to fix it. He just sat there, breathing with her, anchoring her to the present. That was what she needed. Not solutions. Presence. Stillness. As the wind whispered through the trees, something unspoken passed between them, a shift. They weren't just protector and victim anymore. They were becoming something more, partners in survival. Then came the snap of a twig. Jack stood immediately, scanning the darkness. Nothing. Maybe an animal. Maybe not. He entered the cabin, checked every lock. Lena's hands were trembling again. "Do you think he's here?" she asked. Jack didn't answer. He grabbed his duffel and opened a secret pocket beneath the lining. Inside, a pistol wrapped in an old flannel shirt. He hadn't used it in years, but it still worked. He loaded it in silence. "Tomorrow," he said, "we start fighting back." Lena didn't argue, she just nodded, and in that moment she stopped being afraid. She was ready. Jack knew they were running out of time. The silence surrounding the cabin wasn't peace, it was pressure building. He stepped outside and made a call he'd been avoiding for years. "Tony," he said when the line picked up. A pause. "Jack? Damn, haven't heard your voice since. I need a favor, it's big." Tony sighed. "You in trouble?" Jack looked at the tree line. "Not yet, but it's coming." He explained everything in clipped phrases. There was no need for drama, just facts. Tony listened, then asked, "You sure about this?" Jack didn't hesitate. "I've never been more sure." Inside the cabin, Lena heated canned soup on the old stove while Ethan dozed on a pile of blankets. Jack returned, quieter than usual. "A friend's coming," he said. "He'll help us get you somewhere safe." Lena nodded, her face unreadable. Jack could tell she was struggling with something, guilt maybe, fear of hope. "What's the catch?" she asked. Jack leaned against the doorframe. "The catch is, once this starts, there's no turning back." She stared into the fire. "It already started the day I ran." Jack didn't respond, but something in her tone said she wasn't done running. That night, Ethan's fever spiked. He cried in his sleep, twisting in his blanket, burning up. Lena panicked, fumbling for cold water, while Jack rushed to wet a cloth and cool the boy's forehead. "He needs real care," she said, voice breaking. "He's not going to last like this." Jack's stomach turned. They were too far from any town, and Chase might be watching every clinic. Then Jack remembered. Tony's old contact, a retired medic named Raoul who lived off-grid nearby. He called again. "We need him. Now." Tony didn't question. "He's on his way." Raoul arrived at dawn in a muddy pickup, bringing supplies, and a calm presence. He treated Ethan gently, quietly and efficiently. "He'll be okay," Raoul said after examining him. "Just scared and overheated. He needs stability." Jack nodded, relief washing over him. Lena cried silently beside, her son holding his tiny hand. Raoul pulled Jack aside. "You're not just playing hero here, are you?" Jack looked him in the eye. "No, I'm changing course." Raoul smirked. "Good. Just make sure you don't crash." Jack chuckled dryly. "Too late for that." As Raoul packed up, he handed Jack a burner phone. "Use this. Don't call anyone you don't trust with your life." Jack slipped it into his jacket. "You got somewhere she can go?" Raoul asked. Jack nodded. "I've got a plan." He didn't share it yet, because it wasn't fully formed, but the seed was there. Not just relocation, a new life, protection, maybe even custody. That thought scared him more than the guns, but it also felt right. For once, he wasn't reacting. He was building something. Later that afternoon, the old ranger tower behind the cabin caught Jack's attention. It had a clear view of the road below. He climbed it, binoculars in hand. Nothing yet, but the tension in his spine told him it was close. He checked his pistol again. Full mag, safety off. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was confrontation. Chase wanted Lena silenced, but Jack would make damn sure he heard her scream for justice instead. As he descended the tower, he saw Lena watching him. No words, just trust. That terrified him, because he didn't want to fail her. Back inside, Jack pulled out a folder, something he'd buried under the driver's seat years ago. His brother's military discharge papers, a life once full of structure and honor. He handed them to Lena. "If something happens to me," he said, "show these to Tony. He'll know what to do." Lena's eyes widened. "Don't say that." Jack smiled softly. "Just being careful." She clutched the papers like they were sacred. "Promise me you'll come back." Jack hesitated. "I'll do more than that," he said. "I'll bring this nightmare to an end." As dusk fell, Jack's burner phone buzzed once. A message from Tony. "He's on the move. No location, just that." Jack's blood turned cold. He looked at Lena, who was settling Ethan to sleep again. "Get ready," he said. "We're not running anymore." Lena stood, straightening her spine. "Good," she said, "because I'm done being afraid." Outside, the woods rustled. The night exhaled. And for the first time in years, Jack didn't feel like he was driving in circles. He was steering straight into the fire, with no intention of backing down. The wind howled through the trees as Jack sat by the window, eyes fixed on the road below. Hours had passed since the warning from Tony, and the night felt stretched thin, like the final breath before a scream. Lena sat beside Ethan, now asleep again, color returning to his face. She watched Jack without speaking, her trust silently, weighing on him. Jack could feel it, heavy as armor and just as binding. He didn't know what form Chase would take when he arrived, but one thing was certain. This time Jack wouldn't flinch. Headlights pierced the forest's edge, two beams cutting through the mist like blades. Jack stood slowly, checked his weapon, and looked once more at Lena. "Get in the back room, lock the door, don't come out." She wanted to protest, but didn't. She kissed his cheek and vanished behind the door, locking it with trembling fingers. Jack stepped outside. Gravel crunched. The black SUV rolled to a stop. The door opened. A man stepped out, well-groomed, smirking, wearing a tan blazer like he was going to brunch, not hunting a woman. "Jack Reynolds," Chase Vernon said casually. "Heard you've been playing knight in shining armor. Cute." Jack didn't answer. Chase took a step closer, eyes scanning the cabin, the woods, the shadows. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," Chase sneered. Jack raised the gun slowly. "You're right," he said. "I expected someone more dangerous." Chase laughed. "You think this ends with you pointing a gun? You don't scare me." Jack didn't flinch. "Good. That makes what happens next easier." Then from the woods behind Chase, Tony emerged. Gun raised, face set. Chase turned, startled. "You?" he spat. "This is who you called?" Jack stepped forward. "The one guy who knows how you operate, and knows where the bodies are buried." Chase's face darkened. For the first time, his confidence cracked. "You're bluffing." Jack nodded toward Tony. "Am I?" Behind them, sirens echoed faintly through the forest. Jack smiled. "I also made one more call." Panic flickered in Chase's eyes. He lunged, but Tony struck first, knocking him to the ground and pinning him. Jack stood over him, pistol lowered. Game over. Police lights flashed through the trees as officers swarmed the scene. Papers, records, and recordings, collected by Tony and Jack, were handed over. Chase screamed, thrashed, threatened, but no one listened. Lena, now by the door, watched as the man who ruined her life was dragged away. Her hands trembled, but her eyes did not. Jack turned to her, exhausted. "It's done," he said. She walked to him slowly, and for the first time she smiled. A real, free smile. Jack looked at Ethan, now peeking out from the cabin. "You okay, buddy?" Ethan nodded and ran into his arms. Weeks later, Lena and Ethan stayed at a women's shelter temporarily, rebuilding their identity, their future. Jack visited often, bringing groceries, toys, and silence when words weren't enough. On one visit, Lena handed him a small envelope. Inside was a photo, her newborn daughter. "I named her Grace," she said, "because that's what found me on that road." Jack stared at the photo for a long time. "She's beautiful," he said, "just like her mother." Lena blushed. "We're being relocated next week," she added. Jack's chest tightened, but he nodded. "That's good." On the day of their departure, Jack arrived early, truck washed and windows clean. Lena met him at the curb, baby in her arms, Ethan holding her hand. "You didn't have to come," she said. Jack smiled. "I didn't have to stop that day either." She laughed softly. "How you did more than stop, Jack. You changed everything." He looked down, hesitant. "If you ever need anything..." Lena stepped forward and placed Grace in his arms. "You already gave us everything." For a moment, Jack just held her, not the baby, her entire story, her pain, her strength, and didn't let go. A year later, Jack drove down that same highway. Same wheels, same sky. But the man behind the wheel had changed. He wasn't haunted anymore. The road didn't feel lonely. It felt open, free. He carried a photo of Grace on his dashboard, and sometimes when he parked, he replayed Ethan's laugh in his head. He still didn't talk much, but he smiled more, because once upon a time, he didn't just find a mother crying by the road. He found a reason to live again. And somewhere out there, a family now slept safely, because he chose to stop. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Want more stories like this? Become a member and support us. Your support helps us bring even more powerful, life-changing tales to light. Tell us, what would you have done in Jack's place? More stories of redemption and hope are coming. Don't miss our next emotional reveal.